And they said to themselves, "Look, here comes that dreamer. Let us kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." You may be seated. That saying that I just quoted is one that you just heard from the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis. But it's also featured very prominently in the city of my youth, in my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee. "Look, here comes that dreamer. Let us kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." If you go to the National Civil Rights Museum at what used to be the Lorraine Motel, you will be at the place where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was, of course, assassinated, and you will now find that saying prominently displayed. We live in a world that is awash in hatred and bigotry and division. And although my sermon is up there, and I obviously am not, I thought to myself, there is no way that I can just go about business as normal. Seeing and witnessing what we had to bear witness to yesterday. What struck me when I woke up, and I guess alarmed me in some way, is that some of those people look like me. I mean, it's nice if racists will just be, kind of the cartoon characters that you can just easily dismiss, and they kind of almost look like a self-mockery. But some of those young men wore khakis and polo shirts, and somehow thought that that went well with the Nazi flag as well. And that hit me, for whatever reason, that all of a sudden what I was seeing going on all over the world and seeing on my television set in our conversations with one another could come somehow that close in all the ways that it did. And so, as much as I fear not having the security of my sermon notes, I fear more not speaking out forcefully in this moment. I fear not living into the call and the mandate that Jesus has put on my life as a person of faith. I fear not living out in the dignity of my own humanity by not saying what is wrong is wrong. I certainly also fear adding in any way to the divisive climate and am fully aware that almost anyone who says anything is looked at anymore through all of these prisms of our own rancid partisanship. So much so that in the tumultuousness of the last election season, when I said a simple statement like that this church will always stand with vulnerable people, and I hope that that goes without saying, I was greeted with some notes in the offering plate that saw that as somehow political, and I'll spare you the rest of the words. If our politics is so bad that a minister of the gospel of Jesus of Nazareth cannot say that the church is going to stand up against hate, then our politics is wrong. I'm sick of that tribalism, and God knows I don't want to offer any more of it into this world. It's killing us. But I am a tribal person. My tribe just happens to be followers of Jesus. And I want to call all of us who have gathered today under that banner to that call, to be that in the world. The world very much needs Christians to not blend in right now. The church very much needs, the world needs, the church to stand up and be the church. And as fearful as that can in so many ways be, I hope that, like me, you're more afraid of docilely going along with all of this mayhem that is destroying us. And of course, an event like happened in Charlottesville yesterday, I mean, it's a huge, kind of so far, should be at least outside of the bounds of normal behavior that we can say, well, of course I'm not anything like that. And yet I want us to own up to all of the ways that we look at each other with suspicion, that the anxieties of our age are preying on us and inviting us, and we're giving into it to be people that resort first to violence and to the dismissal of people that are different than we are not a part of our tribe. In today's gospel lesson, the thing that I want you to pay more attention to than anything else is almost certainly something that you didn't even notice. And it's the first sentence. When Jesus tells his disciples to get into the boat and go to the other side. Now that probably almost means nothing to you, what's on the other side. But it's actually a vital, important part of the story, and it's very vital to our current moment. See, what's on the other side, and I've been to that other side, and to this day, by the way, this would be where they're going, is the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee. To this day, all of the towns and commerce and where you travel and all the rest, for the most part, are on the western side, where polite, good society happens. And so it was even in Jesus' time. What was on that other side that Jesus is putting his disciples in the boat to go to was a place known as the region of the Gerasenes. I've been there. And when I was there, the leader of our group, this scholar, let us know that the etymology of the word Gerasenes comes from, it shares itself with the word divorced. And so where Jesus was taking his disciples and insisting that they go to the other side was to the place of the divorced. And who's over there? Well, this is where we encounter the demoniac legion, if you remember this. This is where they have pig farmers, which you can imagine don't do real well in a Jewish society. This is where you put people that you don't want to be with. They're divorced from you. They don't have anything to do with you. And the religious environment of Jesus' day felt absolutely fine with staying on their side of the lake. But where's Jesus going? Jesus always takes his disciples to the places that seem out of bounds, to people who have been marginalized and sidelined and said that they don't matter. And there's no way to be a Christian and it just be between you and God and not have anything to do with that. He's insisting that you, if you're going to be in the boat with him, are going to go to the other side. And I am proud to be a part of a church that really does want to live into this. But I'm also insistent that, again, the many, many excuses and reasons and all the rest that we stay on our side and don't venture out of our comfort zones and don't see human beings for the precious gift that each and every one of them is because of our fears and our anxieties. Fear, of course, to these disciples going to the other side, almost owns them as the storms batter them out on that lake. And the real promise of the story isn't, oh my gosh, Jesus can walk on water. It's that no matter what, that Jesus is going to be with his disciples if he tells them to go and do something. No matter what storms arise, he will get to them. As long as those disciples actually listen to him when he says, get in the boat and go. And the promise is that when we do what Jesus says we are to do, he will be there with us. And when he says go to the other side of the lake, guess what? We're going to make it to the other side of the lake. As long as we will do and be what he says we are to do and be. When Shelley was pregnant with our oldest daughter, Abigail, we made the decision not to find out the sex of the child. And so, it was going to be this big surprise, and little did we know we had plenty of surprises already. We didn't need one more, but we did it. And we were naive, of course, and people would tell us, you're going to have a boy. And I don't know why we listened to them. And Shelley's carrying this child in this way, and somehow that was supposed to end up being a boy. Abigail is the result, and when Abigail came, we were very surprised that Abigail was Abigail. Sometimes still in. But we were so convinced that Abigail was to be a boy that we started playing around with boy names. Now, I had a favorite, and it got shot down immediately. I wanted to name that boy Cephas. And you can see why it got shot down. So Cephas, why would I want to name a child, do that terrible thing to them and name him Cephas? Well, Cephas is Peter's name in Aramaic. The way that Jesus talks to Peter, he called him Cephas. When he changed his name from Simon to Peter, he changed his name to Cephas. It means rock. We see, of course, Cephas in the boat with the other disciples. We see Cephas, the rock, wanting to be very heroic in his moment and step out and walk on water like Jesus. And if you listen well to the story, you know that rocks sink. So Cephas needs to learn not to be a hero, that that's not how one is a rock. Now the reason, really the primary reason I wanted Abigail to be named Cephas, if she were a boy, is because my grandfather was named Cephas. And Cephas Long, my dad's father, was the best example of a rock and a Christian really I've ever known. My grandfather didn't have much education. He lived in a part of the world that looks like the moon, if you've ever been there, in southwest Kansas. It's just an odd part of the country. He lived on the margins economically of life his entire life. His hands were all stained by working in something called a carbon black factory, which I don't even know what that is. I just knew it stained my grandfather's hands. And I remember visiting him, and he and my grandmother had to go on Saturdays and clean up a church to make enough money to pay their bills. But Cephas had every reason, therefore, to worry and live in fear, and in his economic anxiety start lashing out and blaming, and particularly people that he saw as a threat to him, coming in and taking the little that he had. But my grandfather insisted that no one ever in his presence talk bad about the humanity of anyone else. He would not tolerate racist jokes. He would not let it go, just, kind of laugh it away. He would not excuse any of this. And he passed that along to my father, who lived this way throughout his career in the Navy and was well loved and liked because of that character to him by all of his people. And thank God I got a little of it too. I've ruined a Thanksgiving dinner before because I have some Cephas in me. My friends, the world needs some Cephases. This world needs some rocks. It doesn't need heroes that sink. It needs just people who will, in all of life's moments, but particularly these moments that are awash in all of this ugliness, to stand up for something decent and good, who want to follow Jesus, who are willing to be in the boat with others, pushing out to where he would have us to go. And by the way, it is always and forever to those who have been divorced from everyone else. This is who we are. And we must renounce and fight down and beat back all those ugly tendencies within ourselves that would call us away from being who Jesus says that we are to be. We must be different. We must be like Cephas. Let me end by saying what I said on the church's Facebook yesterday. And I think it should be obvious, but I guess it is not. Basic to our faith that we got from our mother faith, Judaism, is that every single human being is made in the image of God. Every single one. There's no such thing anywhere as a throwaway human being. You can't, with your grouping or all the other ways that we try to make somebody into other and not worthy, you can't pair that with our faith. And because every single human being is made in the image of God, it is nothing short of blasphemy to hate or even dismiss another person for who he or she was created by God to be. We are those who stand for the good things. The world needs the church right now. And so, St. John's, let's be the church. Amen.